The house lay in silence, a stillness that felt almost oppressive. It had transformed into a realm of hushed footsteps and faint whispers, where sounds seemed to dissipate, and dialogue seldom ventured beyond the essential. Mira perched on the edge of her bed, her shoulders slightly slumped, fingers idly tracing the worn hem of her well-loved sweater. The gentle illumination from the bedside lamp cast a warm hue across the room, yet it failed to reach her heart. Outside, the wind murmured through the trees, leaves caressing the window as if pleading for entry. The stillness enveloped the room, heavy and oppressive. Her phone vibrated softly, a single pulse breaking the silence. A simple alert from a shopping application. Insignificant matters. It's not about you. Calls had become a rarity, absent from her husband's lips and missing from the voices of her college friends. And certainly not Adrian. Adrian, her husband of 7 years, had transformed into a mere shadow of a man she once knew, a stranger with whom she now shared the mundane space of a kitchen. Their union had dwindled into a mere arrangement of convenience. He journeyed frequently for his profession now. The conversations were succinct, utilitarian. Has the plumber arrived? Remember to take care of the water bill. It had been weeks since he had inquired about her well-being. Perhaps several months. Mira had ceased to anticipate warmth. Even the act of acknowledging her seemed like an overwhelming request. Meals were solitary affairs. The echoes of laughter had slipped away from the house, fading softly into the stillness of last winter. She donned that same robe with a frequency that suggested not a lack of effort, but rather an indifference from those around her regarding her choice to change. She seemed to fade into the background, as though she were a mere whisper in a crowded room, here, yet hidden from view. Then, 3 weeks ago, a change occurred. Adrian inquired whether his cousin's son, Adrian, might be able to stay for a time. He found himself in a transitional phase, navigating the space between apartments while preparing for job interviews in the city. Mira had consented with little contemplation. She had only a fleeting acquaintance with Adrian, a brief visit years prior, marked by his polite demeanor and quiet presence, freshly emerged from the halls of academia. He had returned once more. Aged 25, standing tall, with dark eyes that seemed perpetually engaged in the observation of something lurking just beneath the surface. He arrived with a duffel bag, a laptop, and an unassuming tranquility that effortlessly occupied the space around him. Each evening, he welcomed her with a soft, "Hi, Mira," his gaze steady and his demeanor always one of respect. Yet, much like the other men who had crossed her path, he remained a solitary figure. That night began as all the others had. Out of habit, she prepared a meal ample for 2, yet found herself dining solo at the modest kitchen table. She skimmed through half an article on her phone, nibbled at her food, and set the remainder aside. Adrian had messaged earlier, indicating he would be at the library late, diligently preparing for an important interview. As the doorknob to her room rattled softly and a gentle knock echoed, a wave of tension washed over her. She fell silent for a moment, her thoughts racing through a myriad of possibilities. Had she forgotten to turn off the stove? Was there a crisis at hand? Indeed, she finally reached out, her tone more strained than intended. "It is I," came the serene response. "Adrian." She fluttered her eyelashes. "Is all well?" "I merely wished to inquire if you were." The word resonated within her, awakening a slumbering part of her being, caught off guard. She no longer received that question. Not even Adrian. With a measured grace, she eased the door open. Adrian lingered, sleeves of his hoodie rolled up to his forearms, a mug cradled in his hand. Steam spiraled into the air, reminiscent of wisps from a smoldering flame. "I made tea," he remarked. "I thought you might find this appealing." A faint, unexpected smile danced at the corners of her lips. "Thank you very much." As she extended her hand toward the mug, their fingers grazed each other for the briefest moment. She sensed it, an unexpected surge, swift and comforting. He withdrew slightly, allowing her the room she needed. "May I sit for a moment?" he inquired, his voice tinged with a hint of uncertainty. Mira paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Silence enveloped the room, a heavy stillness that seemed to stretch on endlessly. Excessively personal. Yet, perhaps, that was precisely what she required. She gracefully moved to the side. He selected the armchair by the window, easing into it as if it were a familiar refuge. She settled onto the edge of the bed, cradling the tea gently between her palms. For a moment, silence enveloped them, each lost in their own thoughts. The silence was not oppressive, however. The silence here was different from that with Adrian. It lacked the weight of distance and discomfort. This one felt more gentle. As if time itself has paused. "I don't mean to pry," Adrian said, casting a sidelong glance at her, "but you've seemed a bit distant lately." Mira cast her gaze upon him. His gaze remained steadfast. "How thoughtful of you to observe," she replied gently. "I notice more than I probably should," he said, a half-smile playing on his lips. Her chest constricted at the raw sincerity in his voice. What lingered was not pity, but a keen sense of observation, existence. She lifted her cup, allowing the warm tea to wash over her, soothing her frayed nerves. Jasmine, her preferred choice. She had not brought that up to him. Had she? At times, sharing one's thoughts can be beneficial, he suggested. Mira remained silent for a moment. Yet, a fissure had formed deep within her. A tiny fragment, something genuine. The following evening, he rapped once more at the door. This time, she moved forward without a moment's pause. She swung the door wide before he had the chance to utter a word. He smiled, cradling 2 mugs as if it were a cherished tradition. She welcomed him inside. They exchanged a few words concerning his interviews. The topic at hand revolves around the atmospheric conditions. The jasmine and the tea evoked memories of her grandmother's garden, a place where fragrant blooms danced in the gentle breeze. For years, she had kept that secret to herself. Every evening that followed, he made his way back. Silence. Steadfast. Always gentle in my requests. He arrived with tea or snacks, occasionally a book suggestion, and invariably that steady presence. She waited for the knock, attuned to it as if it were a whispered vow. On a particular night, her laughter erupted at his words, a genuine, heartfelt sound. It took them both by surprise. He appeared content, yet not boastful. Her smile brightened his day as well. As she spoke of painting and the long absence of a brush in her hand, he refrained from suggesting a return to the canvas. He merely remarked, "If you ever do, I would be eager to witness what you bring to life." She had lost touch with the sound of encouragement that came without strings attached. Adrian did not engage in flirtation, that was simply not his way. Yet, his presence ignited a spark within. Not unsuitable, quiet. Simply, experienced. A gentle touch at her back, providing support when she was unaware of her need for it. For the first time in ages, Mira found herself experiencing a sensation beyond mere numbness. She found herself in a haze of uncertainty, unsure of what was unfolding around her, or if anything at all was real. Yet, as she met his gaze and found him truly observing her, a shiver coursed through her skin. She was observed. Not in the role of Adrian's wife. Neither as a hostess nor as a mere fixture within the home. Much like Mira. Perhaps, that marked the dawn of it all. The days melded together, as they always did, yet now the evenings throbbed with an undeniable energy, a tangible truth. Mira discovered a growing anticipation for the sunset, not for the stillness it offered, but for the myriad possibilities it unveiled. Adrian would always rap on the door just as the sky donned its golden hue. That evening, the residence was enveloped in a gentle, golden light. The lights cast a soft glow, candles danced gently on the kitchen counter, and once more, she had prepared dinner, rosemary chicken accompanied by warm, inviting bread. It was uncomplicated, yet it carried the fragrance of tenderness. He made his entrance, as was his custom, mug in hand, sleeves of his hoodie rolled up, a gentle smile gracing his lips. Yet, a delicate shift lingered in the atmosphere, a tension that had previously eluded notice, or perhaps had always existed, unvoiced and meticulously held in check. I brought chamomile tonight, he said, offering her the mug. Their fingers grazed once more, this time with intention. Neither withdrew. She savored a sip, soothing and gentle, yet her heartbeat told a different story. It resonated within her chest, more forceful than any silence had ever been. He paused, allowing his gaze to linger for a moment longer. Tranquil. She arched an eyebrow. Peace eludes me, not at all. His voice dropped to a whisper, smooth and rich as velvet. I sense a shift, she hesitated, awakened. Adrian held his gaze steady. Stirred can indeed have its merits. His tone carried an unmistakable weight. A transformation, a bold endeavor. That night, they chose not to sit apart. Instead, they both discovered themselves in the living room, nestled closely on the couch. A candle illuminated the coffee table that lay between them, its flame dancing as if it held a hidden truth. Mira curled her legs beneath her, the fabric of her robe enveloping her snugly. Not out of modesty, for the purpose of grounding. He observed her in silence for an extended moment. You once had a brush in your hand, he remarked. She inclined her head in agreement. Commenced anew last week. His smile widened. A sense of difference envelopes you. I stand apart. He inclined his head. What is the reason behind this? She hesitated before responding. She might have fabricated an excuse, claimed it was the artwork or the climate, yet her gaze locked onto his, and the truth effortlessly emerged. Due to your influence. His breath hitched, ever so slightly. Sufficient for her to take note. Mira, he uttered her name as if it were a sacred invocation, unhurried. Lightweight. Simply awe-inspiring. She averted her gaze, a sudden awareness washing over her of just how near they stood. As the fabric of her robe had subtly shifted at the collar. Of how the flickering candlelight waltzed within the depths of his dark eyes. You remind me I exist, she said, her voice a gentle whisper. I am more than merely a spouse. The weight of another's duty. His jaw clenched, though not out of rage. From limitation. He murmured, you are so much more than any of that. You are a beacon of light. You simply overlooked it. She regarded him with a slow blink. You truly perceive me, don't you? He inclined his head in acknowledgement. Each passing day. The stillness that followed was heavy with potential. Their breaths intertwined, the intimacy of their proximity, the deliberate caress of his hand against her knee, unmistakably intentional. Not informal. It hung in the air. Mira remained still. He did not either. Her voice floated like a delicate whisper. If you linger any longer, I fear I won't be able to maintain the facade that this is merely tea and idle chatter. I don't want to pretend, Adrian replied, his voice low and rough around the edges. I have yet to experience that. A moment lingered. Then yet another. And then, a change occurred. He extended his hand, deliberate and confident, his fingertips gliding over a strand of hair, carefully tucking it behind her ear. She breathed out unsteadily, leaning into the contact just a bit. Sufficiently ample. He observed her intently, delving deep into the nuances of her being. Not as a boy gazing at a stunning woman, but as a man etching a moment into his memory, one he wished to hold on to forever. Tell me to stop, he said. She did not. Instead, she inclined her body forward, allowing their foreheads to meet in a delicate connection. The silence thrummed with a vibrant energy, palpable and electric. This isn't wrong, she whispered. No, he replied. It exists in truth. And then, softly, his lips brushed against hers. It unfolded at a measured pace. It lacked any sense of wildness. It was filled with deep respect. As if he feared she might disappear. As if pressing his lips against hers with too much fervor could shatter the fragile beauty of the moment. Yet her hands sought out his face, fingers weaving through his hair, and he breathed out sharply against her lips. It grew more profound. The kiss began as a gentle warmth, then flared into a passionate blaze. It had been years since she experienced a kiss infused with such hunger, yet laced with a profound sense of reverence. As though she were a precious gem. A realm of the divine. As they separated, both panting, her gaze sought his with intensity. "Do you truly believe this is the right course of action?" she inquired, her tone revealing a glimmer of hope rather than skepticism. He extended his hand toward hers, grasping it firmly. "Never have I felt such certainty." The atmosphere in the room did not diminish, instead, it deepened, enveloping them like a heavy shroud. Heat surged in her cheeks, radiated through her chest, and tingled in her fingers. They lingered in that moment, his thumb gently caressing the back of her hand, her head softly nestled against his shoulder. It was never a matter of haste. It was a matter of relishing. "You know," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I used to feel like I didn't belong anywhere. Every location I inhabited, every sofa I found solace on, it was all fleeting. Yet, here we are." He cast his gaze upon her. "You evoke a sense of belonging." Mira shut her eyes, her heart heavy with the tenderness in his voice. "Not desire. Not mere infatuation. A profound essence, something genuine." "I never imagined I would experience this once more," she confessed. "You need not walk this path in solitude any longer," he remarked. They remained in that embrace as the night deepened around them. Gradually, her robe descended, unveiling the graceful contour of her shoulder. His fingers glided over the skin, gentle as a whisper. She trembled, not due to the chill, but from the rush of feeling. "Beautiful," he murmured. She tilted her head in his direction, their faces mere inches apart once more. "Will you stay a little longer?" she asked. He remained silent, offering no verbal response. He pressed his lips to hers once more. This time, it was anything but gentle. It was essential. It was acknowledgement. It embodied every unspoken pain, taking form in the world around it. She enveloped him in her embrace, drawing him nearer. There existed neither guilt nor shame, only the pulsating beat of something long entombed rising once more into existence. His hands traced her waist, glided along her back, and caressed the curve of her neck. Silence enveloped them. There was no necessity for them to do so. In that room, where the candlelight flickered and shadows waltzed across the walls, a sacred narrative was being transformed. This is not a fleeting affair. It was not an error, yet, a rediscovery. A revival. As the candle flickered and its light dimmed, he embraced her on the couch, her head resting gently on his chest, their hearts beating in unison. In that moment, Mira was struck by a truth that pierced through her, sharp and undeniable. This was not a fleeting moment. This was more than mere loneliness addressed. This marked the beginning of an unnamed journey for both of them, yet, it was undeniably real. And it belonged to them. The days that followed that night were enveloped in a profound silence, one that was neither empty nor solitary, but rather imbued with a sense of reverence, a stillness that resonated with understanding. Mira stirred from her slumber, greeted by the melodic chirping of birds and the gentle caress of sunlight. Yet, for the first time in years, an unfamiliar sensation blossomed within her. She experienced a profound sense of completeness. When she descended the stairs, Adrian was absent from the house, yet the note lingered in his place. A crisp, folded piece of paper lies gracefully beside a steaming cup of jasmine tea, its delicate aroma wafting through the air. You are worthy of mornings that embody hope. I shall return shortly. Ah. She pressed the note against her heart for a fleeting moment, engulfed by its unpretentiousness, by the way he perceived her. All sensations seemed fresh and uncharted at this moment. The world remained unchanged, far from perfect. Her husband continued to reach out, his voice a blend of obligation and remoteness, inquiring about the bills and the necessary repairs. Yet her spirit no longer bowed under the burden of obscurity. She had been observed, caressed, adored. Mira resumed her painting, this time with a newfound sense of intention. In the sunroom, canvases flourished, vibrant hues dancing with unrestrained grace. Adrian lingered in the doorway, his gaze gentle and filled with admiration. He always respected boundaries, always unhurried. He merely occupied space beside her, an essence that fostered rather than possessed. In the little moments, they discovered happiness, grocery trips that transformed into strolls hand in hand, playlists shared over the stove, her laughter ringing through the kitchen as he theatrically lamented the rice scattered across the floor, as if he had unearthed a contemporary catastrophe. Conversations about the future were never part of their discourse. Not out of fear, but because the present had grown sufficient. His fingers brushed against her back softly as she bent over the sink. She gently swept his hair aside, revealing his eyes, just before their lips met in a tender kiss upon her forehead. Each instant was a promise cloaked in subtlety. Yet, as is often the case, time unfolds a tapestry of inquiries. It was a Sunday when the world began to change. The front door swung open sooner than anticipated, and her husband's voice pierced the stillness. Mira stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. Adrian ventured out to procure some pastries. She was unprepared. Her husband stepped into the kitchen, his eyebrows arched in surprise. "I wasn't aware you were in the midst of a redecoration project." Mira pivoted towards him with deliberate slowness. "I never expected you to pay attention." He blinked, a hint of surprise flickering across his face. "I certainly take note, Mira." "No," she replied with a serene composure, "you look. Yet, it feels as though you ceased to notice me ages past." Just as he was about to reply, the door swung open once more. Adrian entered, clutching a bag filled with warm, flaky croissants. He stood motionless at the sight of the man he still, in a sense, referred to as Dad. Mira remained composed. She advanced with purpose. "We need to talk," she said, her voice unwavering. The duration felt extensive. Excruciating, truthful. She confided in her husband about the profound emptiness that had lingered through the years. How utterly invisible she had become. In her journey of self-discovery, she found her true essence not in the shadows of betrayal, but in the gentle embrace of kindness. By gaining recognition. Via Adrian, there were no heated exchanges. Only silence, dense and overflowing. Her husband ultimately departed, his silence resonating more profoundly than any words he could have uttered. On that night, Mira lingered by the window. Adrian approached her, uncertainty shadowing his steps. "You need not decide on anything this evening," he remarked. "Not I. No one in particular. Simply be yourself." Her gaze fell upon him. The man who resurrected her spirit through sheer patience and unwavering presence. "I already did," she whispered, "as I welcomed you into my world." He drew her near, enveloping her in his embrace as if he were the solution she sought. Time slipped away, week by week, then came the months. The house transformed. Gradually, the walls were alive with color once more. Books and candles adorned the shelves, creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. The sound of laughter filled the space, drowning out the relentless ticking of the clock. Mira began to host intimate art workshops in the sun-drenched sunroom. Adrian secured a remote position, often finding solace in the armchair beside her as she worked from home. They never defined what they possessed. It required no designation. It merely was, unwavering and hallowed. On a day when spring breathed new life into the world, Adrian stumbled upon yet another unfinished painting, hidden away behind a shelf. With a grin, he presented it to her. "It is time," he declared. She smiled, pressed her lips softly against his, and whispered, "Yes. This time, I shall see it through to completion." For she had come to understand that love was not solely defined by grand gestures. At times, it lay in the manner of a nightly knock, in the manner of their anticipation. In the manner they beheld you, and never averted their gaze.